this means is that a person could safely drink 1 ounce of this new silver every day for the rest of their life, and if none of it ever left their body, they would still not accumulate silver in an adverse amount. Because it is non-toxic, it can be taken internally. Because it has antimicrobial properties, it is a disinfectant. For this reason, it is an internal disinfectant with antimicrobial properties. Patents are not medical approvals, but in order to get a patent on a supplement or drug, the claims must be proven by credible sources, the same sources used by the FDA and EPA to give approvals and endorsements. So the following claims are made according to a patent. In fact, on claims numbers 8 through 14 on page 3 of the patent, you'll find important claims that have been documented by scientific study. The U.S. patent for silver water dispersion, claim number 8, states, and I quote, "For Bacillus anthracus," by the way, that's anthrax, "for Candida albicans," that's yeast, "for Mycobacteria bovis and tuberculosis," for Pseudomonas aeruginosa, that's for wounds and wound healing, for Salmonella, that's against food poisoning, for Yersinia pestis, that is the bubonic plague. And by the way, it was killed in 2 minutes when exposed to the silver sole. Again, going on in the patent, it is for Staph aureus, that is called MRSA, which is resistant to antibiotics. In fact, I want to tell you a story about that. I was at a funeral here in December, a funeral for a lady who went in for cosmetic surgery. She just had her eyelids retouched up a little bit. In the hospital, she obtained a Staph aureus or MRSA infection. Within 2 days, she died. Now imagine, if you will, going to the hospital for a tiny little incision, getting a bacterial infection. It expands and goes throughout your body. The antibiotics that they gave her were not enough to contain the bacteria, and she died. We know she got it in the hospital. She did not come in with it because 3 of the 4 other people in her wing of the hospital for cosmetic surgery also died within 2 days. So it's a shame that this is happening, but imagine if you could prevent the activity from MRSA with a silver sole. Going on, let me tell you about the plague. Now, we all heard about the plague, and we recognize that 1/3 of Europe died from the plague. Well, if you recognize the fact that we still use silverware, that is how they helped deter the problems associated with the plague. They actually made silverware out of pure silver, and when they did so, they found that they did not suffer near as many side effects or experiences with the plague as others. Now, when silver was tested against Yersinia pestis, that's bubonic plague, it worked in 1.4 minutes. So, just to see how well it might work, in the lab, they used 160 times more plague cells than normal and found that it killed 99.99% in 2 minutes. What I'm talking about here is the obliteration of something that killed off 1/3 of Europe. We are going to have plagues in the future. We are going to have modern-day plagues. In fact, I suggest we suffer a modern-day plague right now in the form of MRSA. MRSA is a staph infection that is not being contained in hospitals, and in fact, antibiotics are not able to get rid of it. So you could actually get a small cut, have a small infection turn bacterial, and lose a significant part of skin, or a leg, or an arm, or even die from it, like what happened with my friends in the cosmetic surgery wing. Going on, U.S. patent claim number 10 states, and I quote, "For malaria, fungal infections of the skin, bacterial infections of the skin, vaginal infections, urinary tract infections, tonsillitis, pelvic inflammatory disease, pharyngitis, gonorrhea, conjunctivitis, otitis, respiratory infections, and nasal infections." Basically, in summary of that, any orifice of the body that may have a bacterial infection can be benefited when used topically and or internally. And if you have a significant problem, it's wise to use it in both combination ways, meaning you want to take it orally twice a day and at the same time spray it on, or apply it topically. This is important to recognize because some of the most dangerous invaders that we have in our body, well, most of them, enter through one of the orifices of our body. So if we go on and look at the patent claims numbers 11 through 14, you'll find that they're antiviral properties. In addition to that, you'll find that they're both viral DNA polymerase and inhibition of viral reverse transcriptase. What that means is there's two forms of viruses, and they designate them in the way that they replicate through the body. The bottom line is that the patent indicates that both of them are covered with the new SilverSol technology, and that includes hepatitis B virus by name in claim number 14. As an immune-enhancing product, it has been presented to Tom Ridge, Secretary of Homeland Security, by Senator Orrin Hatch for use as a first responder against bioterrorism and pandemics. In addition to that, this is probably my favorite thing I get to read to you, and so I'm just going to read part of it. It is a letter from General P.K. Carlton, M.D., who is also the Director of Integrative Center for Homeland Security, and he recommends the following in written form, and it states, quote, I would like to bring to your attention a resource that I feel can be utilized in the area of biodefense from bioterrorism to infectious diseases such as SARS. The ABL antimicrobial has undergone rigorous testing and has been found to kill anthrax, bubonic plague, hospital staff, and SARS. It is the first new antimicrobial for the hospital in many years. In addition, the product is non-toxic to humans, EPA approved for hospital staff and bubonic plague, and currently awaiting Section 18 approval for anthrax. In short, we currently do not have anything with such a wide spectrum of efficacy in our inventory. As such, I recommend that the antimicrobial be evaluated for addition to the National Pushback Stockpile, unquote. That is a letter from a medical doctor who is also a general, who is also in charge of Homeland Security issues. He has written this to Congress so that they might stockpile this very technology. This means that the new SilverSol product has been identified as a first responder product that should be stockpiled and used against bioterrorism and infectious disease pandemics. By the way, the top infectious diseases in America today are number 1, staph, number 2, strep, number 3, pneumonia, number 4, MRSA, that's methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. These are the cause of infections of the ears, nose, throat, lungs, bronchioles, eyes, skin, digestive tract, and they can be fatal. Did you know the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, has warned doctors not to prescribe any antibiotics for ear infections? That's true. In November of 2006, all physicians were warned in a letter from the CDC that they should not prescribe any antibiotics for otitis or otitis media. Those are ear infections, because they only serve to make the problem worse, unquote. And the recommendation from the CDC to doctors is to give an analgesic, in other words, a painkiller or anti-inflammatory, and the ear infection should remedy itself in a few days. You know what? I had a 6-year-old son, and he received an ear infection, and we gave him antibiotics the first week. We gave him antibiotics the second week, and we went on through 6 rounds of antibiotics, and we couldn't control the ear infection. Now, this was about 12 years ago, and I didn't know better. And we learned the hard way that my son went on enough antibiotics that to this day, 12 years later, he still has digestive tract problems in the form of irritable bowel syndrome, and he still has abnormal responses to things like sugar, to stimulants, to sweets of any kind. He has a difficult time with immune system function, if that's what you want to call it. Learn from this mistake that we made as parents. Our children, had they had 4 drops or even 3 drops of this new silver technology in their ears, they may not have had to go through what we had to go through. And by the way we finally got rid of my son's ear infection was to put liquid garlic drops in his ear. You know what? He had an infection that antibiotics could not get under control, and it lasted for months. To this day, he's paying a